actually was founded in 1993 as a rural market consultancy and research firm by Mr. Pradeep Kashyap, who's actually also known as a father of rural India for his work and insights on this in this section of the market. They work with global businesses, government, donor agencies to help them take right direction in these ever so growing markets. Their experience lies in understanding the emerging market and the base of pyramid segments, their ecosystem and dynamics. I think this is precisely why we thought bringing Mr. Benjamin Mathew to talk about what's happening really at the bottom end of the pyramid. Are these changes that we're talking about, shift from the unorganized to the organized, big becoming bigger, also visible in the interior parts of India? Just a little bit about Mr. Benjamin Mathew. I think he has done a vast body of work over the long period of time that he has been associated with MART. But I think some of these things that sort of caught my attention was that he's actually created and implemented a very scaled, low-cost, innovative rural distribution model using the village population and livelihood options that they give for many companies. He's worked on a sort of a service delivery for an IT-based kiosk across like 25,000 touch points in rural areas across 8 states in India. He built the first fortified snack category for a beverage major by way of product design, brand building, behavior change, and market development. I think I can go on with his sort of credentials and achievements, but I would stop here and I'll hand over the mic to him for his initial comments, and then probably we'll open up for Q&A. Over to you, Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I sincerely apologize first for not having a good connectivity, and I could not present my slides, 4 or 5 slides of them. But
no
however,
problem.
I'll try and kind of take the session through, as you mentioned, that I'll touch upon most of the things at the bottom of the pyramid, looking at what the ecosystem changes has been, how the things are shaping up, and is there a potential for the organized those kind of sectors, how they are moving. So taking that into account, I guess most of the participants in this forum understand when I say small towns and rural and all those things, these are very clearly defined scenarios.
Yeah, Mr. Matthew, sorry to
in
cut
India,
in.
that contributes to.
But I think you can switch off your video because there is some lag in the.
I think I should switch off. Yeah.
And we just, I think, missed you on that point of small town and the definition of it. So if you can start from there.
I'll come back to the scenario that when I'm talking about the bottom of the pyramid, small towns and rural and all those things, just make into account that 70% of the population lives in the rural, and rural has a very significant definition, very clear definition, that 75% of the male population is engaged in agriculture or allied activities. Per square kilometer density of population does not exceed 400, and there should not be any municipality or a board. If these 3 conditions are met, that is exactly what we call rural, or the bottom of the pyramid that most of the people understand. And from a consumer's consumption standpoint in India, it right now contributes close to what 52% of India's GDP. Okay, that's exactly how much of the GDP that comes from that area. Over the years, I think rural has been continuously growing till about 2016-17. Consumer goods have been really doing well. FMCG goods have been really doing well. We have about 8 million retail outlets that we need to reach out to in the 640,000 villages that we are kind of talking about. So growth has been steady. Larger players like Unilever's, Nestle's, and Colgate's and Palmolive's, and all those people have been kind of really doing well and deeper penetration. However, the caveat always is the part that in the 640,000 villages, we are able to reach about 120,000 villages only. Not beyond that. The rest of the things still becomes fairly unviable and economically not a very practically workable situation is the scenario, where wholesale and the other kind of distribution systems really take the product right into those areas. And that's how the growth overall has been coming. So in a sense, at the bottom of the pyramid, the pre-COVID scenarios has been very good. I mean, it was growing at a very good rate. The COVID scenarios and the lockdowns basically plummeted the entire scenario downwards, especially the lockdowns that created a kind of a ripple effect in terms of the logistics and the product categories not reaching out to the retail level, and the consumption really kind of taking a beating in that sense. So that things have now kind of really slowly taken a good measure, and most of the consumption in the bottom of the pyramid has kind of come back. However, there are other caveats that continues to say that you have an additional 28 million migrant workers that don't want to return back to the urban centers. Okay, that is going to stay there. You have NREGA, I mean REGA payments that have upped by about 20,000 crores or so, but there is a 42% extra enrollment in the MNREGA part, which means that the entire 2 billion, 3 billion man days of employment that we will create will still get scattered out. So there are many factors that we are really coming in. The MSPs over the period this year has been about 19-20 rupees per quintal that has been given out, which is significantly bigger. The point is that every 1 rupee increase in the minimum support price for wheat or rice infuses 400 crores to the rural market. That's how I look at it. So that's a kind of trend. So there are a lot of things that are happening in bits and pieces. But the case is that any big investment from the government side is kind of completely missing. Something like a Bharat Nirman or something like a Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. So those which used to create that entire impetus in terms of the consumption scenario is still kind of ebbing off. But the other side, which is more demand driven, more consumption driven, more technology driven, and all those things, is definitely showing a very good positive signs. Which mean to say that the growth that you want to see in the rural, about 5, 6, 7% of growth, which naturally comes in, will continue to be there. But the growth that is induced by most of the government expenditures and other things is still going to be lagged. So there will be about 5-6% lesser in terms of that scenario. So overall, we may not see a double-digit growth, but we will see a high single-digit growth that is going to come in. On top of that, I think some of the things that we really need to understand, what was India's GDP in 1990 is exactly the same GDP of Maharashtra as of today. Okay, so we really need to understand that the states have become a significant market in itself. It has its own regional flavors, regional structures. So in Gujarat, Coke doesn't compete with Pepsi, it competes with Chach, the buttermilk. Okay, that is a big market there. So when you look at all these bottom of the pyramids, the larger players, definitely the national players like Levers and other people, have definitely a very good reach and connect. However, I don't discount the fact that the smaller and the regional players are not doing well. They are doing extremely well. For instance, Goldie Masale in Uttar Pradesh has a tripla chun combination with masala, which is most common in the eastern UP belt, which is the taste of that area. So you can't beat it by an MBH masala or an Everest masala. That's practically not possible. Similarly, you have Dairy Rich, which is basically a product that goes in terms of the alternate for dairy milk, okay, and it's priced at 10 rupees. So what we say is that the regional local players will definitely exist. What you say, would you consider this as an organized to unorganized scenario, or unorganized to organized scenario? I think definitely yes. The packaging is good, the quality is good, the local marketing scenarios has been really good, so they will definitely make a dent. But they may not make a larger dent at the national level. They will be already operating in bits and pieces of the country, maybe 100 districts, maybe a state. These are the brands that you will continue to see. Say, for instance, Himgange in Eastern UP is a very good fight for Navaratna Tel. Okay, so they can't beat them because of the way that is being manufactured locally. So considering all this, I think we can definitely take this account that at the bottom of the pyramid, the loose categories have come in significantly lower. The packaged goods definitely makes much higher percentage of the entire game. The retail shelves have much more number of SKUs because the IT connectivity and other things have really paving the way for information to go in. And there is an aspiration for buying, consuming things that look more or less like the urban scenarios. So that's the fundamental changes that is coming in. And going forward, this growth is going to continue. I think there is an enough demand and market that exists at that level, and they definitely would have a drive to go in. Given this fact that this is a long-term game, there is no short-term results that come in very quickly. So you have a market that can go in. There is a consumption point. The only thing right now up after the COVID, which is not coming up back, is the services sector. Okay, agriculture has done extremely well. The industry seems to be doing pretty much this, a good job about it. But the services sector, especially small and medium enterprises and local enterprises, is finding very difficult to survive or has got closures. So therefore, some amount of employment has kind of get disconnected, which will take some time to come back. And it's a longer duration as government pushes in more credit, more money into the rural, these will slowly come back. And from a premiumization and a product perspective, I think essentials will have a very big role into play. Premiums will still be discretionary spendings will be still much lesser till the incomes come back to the 2018-19 levels. The wages are all still very flat. If you really look at, the wages have not increased in the last 3-4 years. So it's that point, at a point where I would definitely say the growth will be there, but also a very significant jump you may not see. So that's where it stands as of now. Hope I have touched most of the areas. I can touch upon as per questions into different segments, whether you are looking at auto or FMCG or any other sectors. As questions come in, I can keep on answering those things going forward. So this is what I wanted to take you through, but I can share the numbers as well in terms of what kind of budgeting that is going in, how much private sector spends are being going in. So rural has become a very important element for most of the companies that you are right now seeing. Hope this is good start enough, and I can answer, keep on answering the questions.
Sure, Mr. Matthews. Thank you very much for that perspective. So one thing that sort of I take away from your initial comments is that rural India is obviously it's growing. The pace of growth can be something which we can sort of debate and discuss. But one thing that you alluded to very clearly is that they are fast sort of moving towards organized stuff, packaged foods, more variety.
Absolutely.
They're more aware of things, probably with the advent of technology and internet. So I just wanted to take the audience through, the use of internet. How has that sort of changed some of the fundamental things in the bottom of the pyramid or the rural parts of India? If you can throw some instances on how things have changed and how that will drive consumption.
Okay. As per the technology and the understanding that we have, I would say 97% of India's terrestrial mass is covered by mobile signals. Okay, so that becomes a very clear element that you don't miss a connectivity in any of the rural, except for the mountainous regions and the regions where you don't reach by mobile signals. So that's a given scenario. The second part of the game is basically we have about 473 million mobile phones in rural. I would say for a 900 million population, you have a 50% penetration. And out of the 473 million mobile phones, about 117 million mobile phones are smartphones. Okay, the lower end smartphones that you're looking at. And within that smartphones, that connectivity of internet is already there. Okay, So when I say internet connectivity and the connectivity information that is going in, I'm not saying that they are going on to the browser and browsing. No, that's not the case. They are connected by apps. Okay, so when I say connected by apps, they are using Facebook, WhatsApp, these kind of applications, and YouTube is a big entertainer in that scenario. So therefore, on an average, this kind of connectivity is what is paving the way for the information flow to get it, and this becomes a really good platform for engagement. WhatsApp is a very good platform for engagement at the rural level. People communicate, people share information, and that's how the entire things look like. So for technology-wise intervention, I think the smartphone revolution would be the single biggest hinge on which the entire information flow to the rural will happen. And that's where it stands as of now.
Fair enough. And one
Hope
more
I
thing
answered
that,
your question.
yeah. I mean, and that is fueling consumption also, right? I mean, when you get access to information or say
you
stuff
get
on
access
YouTube and WhatsApp, you tend to sort of also get into that zone of trying to aspire to own those products or avail those services. So I think it sort of perfectly ties up into what I wanted to ask. One other thing that a lot of foreign investors,
not to miss this.
Sure.
Sorry, not to miss this point that YouTube still advertises a fair amount of product categories. No,
Yeah.
For every YouTube video that you play, you still have the information on products and other categories that's seriously moving.
Sure. So one other thing that a lot of foreign investors ask us is that rural India is a lot dependent on agriculture and hence on the monsoons, because irrigation is not evenly sort of available or spread across in India. What is your thought there, and how much of that has changed over the last 10-20 years?
So that's a very interesting question, and the answer is, see, 62% of India's arable land is not dependent on rainfall. So period. Okay, we need to understand that rainfall has a much more psychological and a spiritual connectivity with you rather than just to the agriculture alone. Okay, so when it rains, your entire mood in the rural becomes positive. So it doesn't mean that we are dependent and the rains doesn't come in, so the agriculture will go off. There has been no instance in the last 1 decade where rains have been short and our production has gone down. That's not the case at all. So to be very clear, the agriculture is right now not dependent on rainfall. There is much more technology and other intervention that is going in, and it is growing at the rate of about 1.5 to 2% on an annual basis. That's the kind of growth in the agriculture that is coming in. But your point is right, that agriculture contributes only 30% of the income to the household. Okay, at the national level, if you take it, it is only 20% of the income. Okay, so that's how the shape of the economy changes. Services account for almost 50% of the rural economy as of now today as well.
Fair enough. One more question. Mukundan. Mukundan, go ahead. I'll ask after you.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, for the benefit of our audience, how do you define the bottom of the pyramid?
Yeah, there are multiple definitions for the bottom of the pyramid. One of the definition that the World Bank puts is basically less than $2 per day. That is roughly close to about 300 million population that is living in both rural and urban centers of this country. So that's the bottom of the pyramid. However, for a classical definition, and a colloquial definition, we have taken the poorer or cousins of our country as the bottom of the pyramid, which is the rural part of India, and the people who are living in the urban, which are living in the slums of their area. So that's a kind of colloquial definition that has come in.
And just one more question on that. Obviously, China's growth was very much related to massive urbanization that happened as people moved from the villages to cities and participated in manufacturing. India's growth is different, but what do you see as the opportunity for urbanization, and how will that change the dynamics?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Mukundan. I just want to give you a little bit of background of how our urbanization is taking place. See, for all instances, our migration to the urban centers for work and all those things is more or less closer to about 4-5%. The reason I am saying this is because of the definition of migration. The migration definition says that when a person is moving from a rural location to an urban location and he doesn't move his family along with him, then he is not considered as migrated. So within this definition scenario, the actual migration to urban centers seems to be very low, except for a few towns like Bangalore, Hyderabad, which is more IT driven. So that's the case. However, we have 120 million migrants that move for work. The second point is our urbanization is more dependent upon the way our urban combination and classification is made. For instance, in 1991, we had 5,600 towns. By 2001 census, we brought it up to about 6,300. And by 2011 census, we have now about 8,000 odd towns and cities. So we definitely on the paper looks like we are urbanizing, but practically what we are doing is when the concentration of people in a certain location crosses that 400 per square kilometer density of population, then we define it as an urban agglomeration. And then over a decadal period, we kind of set up the entire urban infrastructure and all those things, and then kind of push the entire envelope into saying that this is now an urban center. So practically, there is a lot of contradiction in terms of how we really look at it, but our growth is not practically coming from urbanization. Our growth is more coming from the consumption at the very places where the humans live and work. And that can be both rural and urban as well. Hope I have answered your thought process.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Mathew, one final question from my end. One more thing that has this government done over the last few years is ensuring power to all the villages. And power, just like water, will find its own use, in my view. And what has this done in your assessment on your groundwork? And I have a related question to that. They want to do similar thing with respect to tap water now. So both of these things, what do they mean for the bottom of the pyramid for rural India, and what sort of categories that they can fuel growth towards in India?
Very interesting question, Gaurav. Let me just give you a little bit of background, and that is more coming from my consumer behavior studies. I don't come from the market side, but I look at the more of the consumer behavior, how the consumption happens. So therefore, if you really look at the data and over a decadal period, if you have say 6 or 7 hours of electricity at the rural level, only productive assets gets bought. That means to say, the guy will buy a pump set or a thresher machine or that kind of thing is what the guy will end up buying. If you take the entire the electricity level to about 12 hours or 13 hours, you will see most of the durables starting to penetrate in, including television sets, irons, refrigerators, so on and so forth. But if we have say 16, 17, maybe close to about 20 hours of electricity, say the states like Gujarat, Punjab, Haryana, you will see an air conditioner as well moving in. So what I'm saying right now is, from a very clear consumption standpoint, electricity, it is not that the rural doesn't have money to buy most of the durables. It's basically that you need to make it work. And if it works, then most of the people will end up buying it. And electricity is one of the biggest enablers for the durable industry. That's a superior answer from my side. So electricity will drive a lot of consumption. Electricity will also make a lot of sectors grow. For instance, the durable segment. I'll give you with a very small example. I'll give you the answer, and you will understand what I'm saying. Schneider had set up a 45 kilowatt solar powered station in a very remote village of Hardoi. Okay, the interesting part is over the next 2 years or so, the entire auto rickshaw segment, which used to be running on petrol and diesel, just got replaced by an electric auto. The reason, because you got a charging point. Okay, you could charge it at a certain level, and on the anchor load scenario for them, most of the chakkis which were kind of completely closed off started working back again, at least for 5-6 hours. Okay, so at the consumer level, the interactions with these kind of things are very different, and that is how the consumer behavior plays out. Hope I answered.
Sure, absolutely. And just on the water bit, before we wrap up, the tap water initiative that the government is undertaking now to ensure that every house has tap water.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point of view. Understand that the consumption of water in the rural, about 84% of the water is utilized by agriculture, and about 7% of the water is utilized for drinking and household purposes. So by far, the problem right now, what we will continue to face is the agriculture water segment, which we'll deal it separately. We will also have a much bigger problem in addressing the potable water segment. Drinking water. Almost 146,000 locations in the rural countryside doesn't have safe, clean drinking water. As simple as that. So the government's initiative is put this address. Yes, it's a big addressable scenario because it will take care of a fair amount of healthcare issues that comes up because of water. Say diarrhea, say meningitis. These are things that actually